Classical music mysteries. Imagine if the government suddenly made an announcement. Starting today, the pitch of the note A across our nation is standardized to this exact frequency. Believe it or not, this actually happened. February 16, 1859, the French government issued an official decree. It was a strict regulation on musical pitch. The order was highly specific. When orchestras tune their instruments, they use the reference note A. The government fixed this pitch at exactly 435 Hertz, recorded at the time as 870 single vibrations per second, measured at an ambient temperature of 59 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 degrees Celsius. This became known as the diapason normale. French national theaters and music conservatories were now required by law to use this official standard. Now, this wasn't a criminal law. The police weren't arresting everyday citizens for playing out of tune. It was simply an administrative decision. The goal was to unify standards across state-run theaters and educational institutions. But this raises an obvious question. Why did the government feel the need to intervene? Pitch had always been a matter of performance tradition. Why regulate it with strict numerical values? The truth is, the music world of the time was facing a massive practical crisis. Everyone wanted a louder, more brilliant sound. As a result, standard pitches were creeping higher and higher. It created huge discrepancies from one city to the next, and even between different theaters. This is the real historical record of that era. It's a story about the endless pursuit of acoustic brilliance and the pitch inflation that followed. And it's about the people who fought to protect singers' throats, standardize the music industry, and unify instrument manufacturing. Chapter 1: Expanding Theaters and the Transformation of Sound. To understand how this started, we have to look back at European society in the early 19th century. The French Revolution and the subsequent Industrial Revolution completely transformed the social structure. For centuries, royalty and the aristocracy were the primary patrons of music. But now, a new class of citizens had gained wealth and social standing, the bourgeoisie. They emerged as the new patrons and consumers of art, and their tastes began to deeply influence the future of music. Back in the 18th century, instrumental music was mostly performed in specific places. Think of grand court halls or aristocratic salons. These were intimate spaces designed for a relatively small number of people. Because of the limited projection of instruments at the time, the music prioritized delicate conversational nuances and a very intimate sound. But as the 19th century arrived, everything changed. The newly affluent middle class had an insatiable appetite for culture. Public concerts became far more common across Europe. The main stage for music shifted dramatically. It moved out of exclusive private salons and into public concert halls, designed for large, diverse audiences. This cultural shift fundamentally altered the physical spaces where music was played. Promoters wanted commercial success. To sell more tickets, theaters and concert halls rapidly expanded. What used to hold a few hundred people evolved into massive structures capable of seating thousands. Naturally, as the spaces grew larger, the old instruments and playing techniques simply couldn't cut it. The sound couldn't reach the back rows. Musicians were suddenly pressured to produce significantly more volume. They needed a more dramatic, brilliant sound, often described as brillante, to captivate these massive new crowds. The era demanded increased volume and an endless pursuit of sonic glamour. This intense pressure from a new generation of listeners was about to trigger a massive structural shift across the entire music world. Chapter 2: The Evolution of Instruments and Creeping Pitch Inflation. Make it louder. Make it more brilliant. Throughout the 19th century, as theaters and concert halls swelled in size, instruments had to project further and louder. The physical solution to this problem came from the Industrial Revolution. Technological advancements allowed instrument makers to completely redesign their creations. many of the core instruments in the orchestra underwent a radical structural transformation. Woodwinds were upgraded with brand new key mechanisms, most notably the Bohm system. This breakthrough made it much easier for players to maintain accurate intonation at high volumes. It also allowed them to play incredibly fast passages with smooth precision. Brass instruments saw the introduction of the valve system. Before this, horns and trumpets relied entirely on the natural harmonic series and difficult hand techniques. With valves, they could suddenly play full chromatic scales. The result was a much more uniform, consistent tone without the old fluctuations in sound quality. String instruments were completely caught up in this trend too. To amplify their acoustic power, the necks of violins were angled back. This allowed makers to fit them with longer, stronger strings. As a direct result, string tensions skyrocketed. Pianos underwent a similar evolution. To withstand the massive tension of modern strings, heavy cast iron frames were installed inside them. This development gave birth to the powerful, high-volume concert grand pianos we know today. Making instruments sturdier and louder vastly expanded the possibilities for musical expression. However, this progress brought a serious side effect. It triggered what we call pitch inflation, a steady, relentless rise in the standard tuning pitch. From a psychoacoustic perspective, slightly raising the pitch actually makes the music sound sharper and more exciting to the human ear. At the time, there was absolutely no universal standard for pitch. Instrument makers and performers simply chased a more brilliant sound. Because of this, the orchestral reference note A just kept climbing. During Mozart's time, historians estimate that the A note hovered somewhere between 420 and 430 Hertz. But fast forward past the mid-19th century, in major musical hubs like Paris, London, and Vienna, the pitch had blasted past 440 Hertz. In some extremes, it was even pushing 450 Hertz. What does that actually mean? It means that many classical pieces were suddenly being played nearly a full semitone higher than the composer originally intended. Because every city was independently hiking up their pitch, the music world faced a nightmare scenario. Every time traveling musicians went to a new city, they were forced to drastically readjust their instruments just to play in tune. Chapter 3: The Limits of the Human Body and the Masterpieces Left Behind. The majority of orchestral instruments are made of wood or metal. By reinforcing their structures or tweaking their designs, makers could physically accommodate this rising pitch up to a certain point. But there was one group of musicians caught in the middle of this inflation with an instrument that couldn't be physically upgraded: opera singers. Their instruments were their own living, breathing vocal cords. As the pitch goes up, the actual physical frequencies a singer has to hit go up with it. At the time, the opera scene, especially in Paris, was dominated by grand opera. These were massive productions featuring sprawling choruses and huge orchestras. To maximize dramatic effect, composers kept writing scenes that pushed singers to the absolute upper limits of their vocal ranges. While new operas were becoming notoriously difficult, older repertoires presented a completely different crisis. Works written during the eras of Gluck and Mozart were composed with a relatively low pitch in mind. These composers carefully calculated the passaggio, the vocal transition points, and resonance of the singers based on those exact frequencies. But by the mid-19th century, orchestral pitches had surged. Singers were suddenly forced to hit much higher notes than the original sheet music intended. It created a massive technical struggle. The vocal cords are delicate biological organs made of muscle and mucous membrane. You can't just tighten them like a violin string to raise the pitch. During this specific era, tenor singing techniques were also undergoing a radical transformation. Traditionally, tenors would switch to a soft falsetto for their highest notes, but a new style emerged. Singers started belting out extreme high notes using their full chest voice, the famous high C from the chest. The audiences went absolutely wild for it. You had this grueling new vocal technique combined with a relentlessly rising standard pitch. These two factors collided, and people grew seriously concerned about the immense physical toll it was taking on singers' throats. Of course, not every singer ruined their voice overnight. However, the anxiety was spreading rapidly among musicians. They feared that if the pitch kept climbing, singing would become physically impossible. They worried that the masterpieces of the past could no longer be performed as originally intended. Later on, the legendary Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi famously opposed this extreme pitch inflation. He strongly advocated for a publicly mandated unified standard pitch. What was happening in the music world wasn't just a debate over artistic ideals. It was fueled by a very real, very practical sense of crisis. They genuinely believed that if nothing changed, the actual practice of musical performance would collapse. Chapter 4: A Council of Masters and the Tuning Fork that led to 435 Hertz. The constant confusion over differing pitches between theaters, combined with very real complaints from struggling singers, finally forced a response. The French government's Ministry of State stepped in to tackle the problem. In 1858, the government established an official committee to resolve the crisis. It was a massive state intervention into the highly specialized world of musical tuning. However, historically, it is recognized as a remarkably administrative and practical approach to the issue. This committee brought together the absolute heavyweights of the 19th century music scene. Legendary composers like Halévy, Berlioz, Rossini, Meyerbeer, and Thomas were all summoned. But it wasn't just musicians. Crucially, the physicist Jules-Antoine Lissajous was also appointed to the board. Lissajous was famous for his research on visually capturing sound vibrations. He grounded the artistic debate with hard scientific data. The committee's goal was clear: stop the chaos and find a universal standard. During the hearings, there was a stark divide. Some fiercely defended the brilliant, piercing sound of the modern orchestra. On the other side, composers like Rossini, who intimately understood the human voice, strongly pushed to lower the pitch and save the singer's vocal cords. Using Lissajous' precise frequency measurements as their scientific bedrock, the committee began to negotiate. They desperately sought a compromise. They needed a pitch high enough to keep the orchestra sounding brilliant, but low enough that singers could actually perform the classical repertoire without destroying their voices. After intense deliberation, they arrived at a single defining number. The standard would be 435 Hertz, or 870 single vibrations per second, measured exactly at 59 degrees Fahrenheit, or 15 degrees Celsius. On February 16, 1859, the French government officially passed this conclusion into law. This decree was only legally binding for state-run institutions, like the national opera houses and conservatories. Nevertheless, it stood as a historic landmark. It was the moment a public standard was finally established to fight the chaos of musical pitch. Epilogue: The Cycle of Standardization and the Lingering Echoes. The 435 Hertz standard, enacted by the French government in 1859, was binding for domestic public institutions. However, it held no international authority. Therefore, it didn't instantly unify the entire globe. For a long time, theaters in other countries simply ignored it and continued playing at their own custom pitches. Yet, over time, this French standard began to function as an objective benchmark. For musicians constantly crossing international borders, especially singers, having a singular agreed-upon pitch offered a massive practical advantage. Finally, in 1885, at an international tuning conference held in Vienna, the French pitch was officially adopted as the recommended international standard. Moving into the 20th century, things shifted again. Driven by the massive influence of the American instrument manufacturing industry and the explosive rise of broadcasting technology, a new standard was agreed upon. At the 1939 International Conference in London, the world officially shifted to the modern standard of 440 Hertz. But in the long, complex history of standardizing classical music, that 1859 administrative intervention by the French government remains a pivotal turning point. This 19th century event is much more than a dry record of numerical agreements. It is the fascinating historical record of a head-on collision, a crash between the acoustic inflation born from instrumental evolution and the absolute biological limits of the human throat. On one side, you had the demand for the brilliant, towering sound of the orchestra. On the other, the desperate pleas of singers trying to keep historical masterpieces alive. Torn between these conflicting demands, the music world had to find a compromise to protect the very survival of their art. That compromise was 435 Hertz. Etched into that simple number is a timeless struggle. It represents the endless battle of artists striving to find the perfect balance between ultimate beauty and the fragile limits of the human body. Thank you for watching. If you have your own thoughts, theories, or interpretations, feel free to share them in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this. See you in the next video.